On the evening of November 7, 2025, the small municipality of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu in southern Brazil experienced what meteorologists would later describe as one of the most violent tornadoes ever recorded in the country. In less than 1 minute, a powerful EF4 tornado tore through this town of 14,000 inhabitants, forever altering the landscape and the lives of its residents. The catastrophic event left 6 people dead, over 835 injured, and approximately 90% of the urban area destroyed, marking it as an unprecedented disaster in Paraná's history. The atmospheric conditions that day were particularly volatile. A mass of warm, humid air from the Amazon rainforest had been moving southward, creating intense thermodynamic instability over the region. Simultaneously, a strong cold front driven by an extratropical cyclone was advancing from the south, pushing polar air masses northward. The collision of these two opposing forces created the perfect breeding ground for severe weather. As the warm tropical air rose rapidly and encountered the cold front, it generated powerful updrafts and rotation within the clouds. The vertical wind shear, intensified by low-level jets flowing westward across Santa Catarina and Paraná, became the critical ingredient for tornado genesis. Within this volatile atmosphere, a supercell storm system began to organize itself near the municipality of Quedas do Iguaçu, just west of Rio Bonito. The tornado formed rapidly within the supercell's rotating mesocyclone, touching down around 5:30 p.m. local time. As it moved eastward, it gained intensity and width, eventually reaching between 800 and 1,000 meters across. Witnesses described the sky turning an ominous greenish-gray color, followed by a deafening roar that sounded like a freight train approaching. The tornado's winds, estimated between 250 and 300 kilometers per hour, possessed devastating force. Buildings that had stood for decades were reduced to rubble in seconds. Metal structures twisted like paper, vehicles were tossed through the air, and entire roofs were ripped off homes and carried away. The tornado's path of destruction extended approximately 40 kilometers before it finally dissipated in a neighboring municipality, leaving behind a scar across the landscape that resembled a war zone. In those terrifying 30 to 40 seconds of peak intensity, lives were forever changed. Among the 6 confirmed fatalities was Julia Quapis, a 14-year-old girl who died when the house where she was sheltering with her family collapsed. Adriane Maria de Moura, 47, Jurandir Nogueira Ferreira, 49, and Claudino Paulino Rice, 57, all from Rio Bonito do Iguaçu, also lost their lives in the disaster. In the rural area of nearby Guarapuava, which was struck by a secondary F2 tornado produced by the same storm system, José Neri Jeremias, 53, became the 6th victim. The human toll extended far beyond these tragic deaths. More than 835 people were injured, with at least 9 in critical condition requiring immediate surgery. Hospitals in Laranjeiras do Sul and Guarapuava were overwhelmed with casualties, working through the night to treat everything from minor cuts to severe trauma injuries. The physical devastation was staggering in its scope. Fernando Schunig, head of the Paraná Civil Defense Agency, described the town as resembling a war zone. Aerial photographs revealed the tornado's selective destruction. Within its path, buildings were flattened or stripped to their foundations, while just meters away, structures stood relatively untouched. Approximately 4,000 people were directly or indirectly affected by the disaster. About 1,000 residents were left homeless, their houses either completely destroyed or too damaged to be safely inhabited. 22 of the town's 30 school buses were damaged or destroyed, affecting transportation for more than 2,000 students. Several schools suffered severe structural damage, forcing the temporary suspension of classes for over 1,900 students. The economic impact was equally severe, with businesses, farms, and essential infrastructure all suffering extensive damage. For the survivors, the experience was nothing short of traumatic. Gilberto Brecailo, a local mechanic, stood amid the ruins of his shop, his livelihood reduced to twisted metal and broken concrete. "There's not much we can do," he said, his voice heavy with despair. "All we have left are our clothes and our documents. My livelihood, my mechanic shop is gone, and my son worked with me." Marilea Chagas, another resident, recounted her harrowing experience of being thrown against a structure by the violent winds, managing to survive only by taking shelter under a bench until the tornado passed. These personal stories of survival and loss multiplied across the town, each one representing a family forever marked by that terrible evening. The response to the disaster was swift and comprehensive. Governor Carlos Massa Ratinho Jr. declared a state of emergency and 3 days of mourning to honor the dead. He described the tornado as an unprecedented catastrophe in the history of Paraná, acknowledging that the scale of destruction exceeded anything the state had previously experienced. Teams from the state's Civil Defense Service, the Fire Brigade, and the Brazilian Army were deployed within hours of the disaster. Search and rescue operations continued through the weekend, with crews carefully combing through rubble, looking for survivors and victims. Heavy machinery from the state government and neighboring municipalities, more than 30 pieces of equipment in total, was brought in to begin the massive cleanup effort. Temporary shelters were established in gyms and schools, providing refuge for those who had lost their homes. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva expressed solidarity with the victims on social media and dispatched members of his cabinet to coordinate federal assistance. Emergency supplies, including food, water, blankets, hygiene products, tarps, and mattresses, were rushed to the area. The state government announced a comprehensive aid package, including the emergency construction of 320 new houses for those who had lost their homes. Financial assistance was promised to affected families, with up to 50,000 reais per family available for rebuilding. The government also approved 75,000 reais in emergency funds for schools destroyed by the tornado and temporarily suspended power and water billing for affected residents. In total, the state authorized the use of up to 50 million reais from disaster relief funds to support recovery efforts. The disaster sparked a wave of solidarity across Brazil. Eduardo Leite, governor of Rio Grande do Sul, offered support and placed his state's resources at Paraná's disposal, remembering how his state had received similar help during the historic floods of 2024. Tarcísio de Freitas, governor of São Paulo, explicitly offered assistance and made teams available to help with recovery efforts. This interstate cooperation demonstrated the sense of shared responsibility that natural disasters often inspire across Brazil's regions. Engineers from the Regional Council of Engineering and Agronomy of Paraná and technicians from the State Housing Company began assessing the structural integrity of damaged buildings, determining which could be repaired and which would need to be demolished and rebuilt. From a meteorological perspective, the Rio Bonito do Iguaçu tornado represents a significant event, not just for Brazil, but globally. Metsul Meteorologia's analysis confirmed the tornado reached EF4 intensity on the enhanced Fujita scale, making it one of the strongest tornadoes recorded worldwide in 2025. According to data compiled by the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, by early November 2025, the United States had registered 1 EF5 tornado and 5 EF4 events. No EF4 or EF5 tornadoes were recorded that year in Europe or Canada, placing the Paraná event among a very small group of the planet's strongest tornadoes in 2025. The enhanced Fujita scale, which ranges from EF0 to EF5, measures tornado intensity based on damage indicators and estimated wind speeds. An EF4 tornado represents the second highest category, with devastating winds capable of leveling well-constructed houses and hurling vehicles considerable distances. Historical context makes the event even more remarkable. The Rio Bonito do Iguaçu tornado is the most intense and deadliest to strike Brazil in over 2 decades. The last comparable event occurred in 1959 in Palmas, also in Paraná, when an estimated F4 tornado killed 35 people. In terms of casualties, the 2025 event is the worst, since the Antonio Prado tornado in Rio Grande do Sul in 2003. This rarity, however, does not mean Brazil is immune to tornadoes. Research from the State University of Ponta Grossa revealed that in 2024 alone, Paraná registered 10 tornadoes, with the southern region of Brazil experiencing 23 tornadoes that year. Between 1975 and 2018, an impressive 581 tornado phenomena were identified across Brazil, with 401 occurring in the southern states representing 70% of all tornado records in the country. Paraná specifically had 89 tornadoes during that 43-year period, with the majority occurring in the afternoon hours, when atmospheric conditions are most favorable for severe weather development. The Rio Bonito do Iguaçu disaster occurred at a particularly sensitive time for Brazil's climate consciousness. The country was preparing to host the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP30 in Belém, which began just days after the tornado. The timing highlighted the urgent reality of extreme weather events and the importance of climate adaptation and disaster preparedness. Scientists have noted that while individual weather events cannot be directly attributed to climate change, the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather phenomena worldwide are consistent with climate models' predictions. Southern Brazil has experienced a troubling pattern of catastrophic weather events in recent years, including the devastating floods in Rio Grande do Sul in 2024 that claimed over 200 lives. These disasters have placed climate risk management and disaster preparedness at the center of Brazil's public policy agenda. The recovery process for Rio Bonito do Iguaçu will be long and challenging. Beyond the immediate emergency response and the clearing of debris, the town faces the enormous task of rebuilding not just its physical infrastructure, but also its community spirit and economic base. Schools must be reconstructed, businesses re-established, and homes rebuilt. The psychological trauma experienced by residents, particularly children who witnessed the tornado's devastation, will require ongoing mental health support and counseling. The town's identity, shaped by its proximity to the Iguaçu River and the canyon formed by the river's ancient bed, as well as its agricultural and pastoral economy, will need to be carefully preserved during reconstruction efforts. For meteorologists and emergency management professionals, the Rio Bonito do Iguaçu tornado offers important lessons. The challenge of providing adequate warning time for rapidly developing tornadoes in regions without dense radar coverage remains significant. While Brazil's meteorological services, including CIMAPAR, monitor atmospheric conditions and issue warnings, the speed with which supercell storms can develop and spawn tornadoes means that even minutes of additional warning can save lives. Investment in enhanced meteorological monitoring systems, improved early warning infrastructure, and public education about tornado safety protocols becomes increasingly critical as extreme weather events become more common. The international meteorological community has taken note of this event, recognizing that violent tornadoes can occur anywhere conditions are right, not just in traditionally tornado-prone regions. The story of the Rio Bonito do Iguaçu tornado is ultimately a human story, about a community facing unimaginable destruction and finding the strength to begin rebuilding. It is about families who lost loved ones, businesses that disappeared in seconds, and children whose sense of security was shattered by nature's fury, but it is also about resilience, solidarity, and the determination to recover and rebuild. As cleanup crews continue their work, as families begin to receive financial assistance, and as the first new houses start to rise from the rubble, the people of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu are writing the next chapter of their town's history. The tornado of November 7, 2025 will forever be remembered as a defining moment, a test of strength and community spirit that this small Brazilian municipality neither expected nor deserved, but one from which it is determined to emerge stronger and more prepared for whatever challenges the future may bring.